This is the Music Halls of Fame podcast, episode 28. This week, we honor the year 2008, along with a member of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame class of 2008. We also look at the case for putting Billy Idol into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and our Spotlight Hall of Fame isn't really a hall, it's the Library of Congress National Recording Registry in Washington, D.C. This podcast celebrates those who have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We'll also look at the case for certain artists to be inducted into the Hall who aren't there yet. Plus, every week we'll discuss a different musical Hall of Fame, Walk of Fame, or museum and celebrate someone who's been inducted into them. Let's start with our main focus of the podcast, which is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The Hall Foundation was established on April 20th, 1983. Former Atlantic Records chairman Ahmet Ertegun was the head of the foundation at the time. 3 years later, a committee chose Cleveland, Ohio to be the site of the physical location for the museum over Detroit, Michigan, New York City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Memphis, Tennessee, and Cincinnati, Ohio. I say physical location because members have actually been inducted into the Hall since 1986, before the building was even opened. Cleveland was chosen because of what DJ Alan Freed did to promote rock and roll, including mainstreaming the phrase rock and roll, which was originally black slang for sex, and for also holding the first rock and roll concert. Ground was broken for the building on June 7, 1993. It opened on September 1, 1995 at 1100 Rock and Roll Boulevard on the shore of Lake Erie. The Hall gets over 400,000 visitors a year on average. Normal hours of operation are between 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. except for Thursdays when they're open until 9 p.m. They are normally open later in the summer months. General admission at the moment is $30. Children 6 through 12 are $20. College students, first responders, military members, and Northeast Ohio residents are $25, and kids 5 and under, Hall of Fame members, and Cleveland residents are free. ID is required to get the discounts. Rockhall.com is their website. That's rockhall.com. And as with all places these days due to COVID restrictions, check with the website for updated information and hours. The year was 2008. The average cost of a home was just under $239,000. Average monthly rent was $800. Average income was just under $40,000. A gallon of gas set you back $3.39. A new car costs on average just under $28,000. And a postage stamp cost you 42 cents. The country was in the middle of a presidential election, which would eventually see Barack Obama beat John McCain and introduce America to Alaska Governor Sarah Palin. Led by the 2007 subprime mortgage crisis and the bankruptcy of Lehman Brothers, the stock market crashed and the Great Recession officially began. A 7.9 earthquake killed 87,000 people in Sichuan, China. A coordinated series of terrorist attacks took place over the Thanksgiving holiday weekend in Mumbai, India, killing 164 people. And the words Bitcoin, dumpster fire, and photobomb were coined that year. Pope Benedict XVI visited the United States, and the museum opened up in Washington, D.C. Famous people who passed away in 2008 include actor Heath Ledger, chess master Bobby Fischer, actress Suzanne Bichette, explorer Sir Edward Hillary, Indonesian President Suharto, Indian spiritual leader and one-time Beatles guru Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, conservative commentator William F. Buckley Jr., authors Arthur C. Clarke and Michael Crichton, actors Richard Whitmark, Brad Renfro, Mel Ferrer, Harvey Korman, Roy Schneider, Charlton Heston, and Paul Newman, actress Estelle Getty, director Sidney Pollack, fashion designer Yves Saint Laurent, actress and dancer Sid Charisse, comedian George Carlin, conservative U.S. Senator Jesse Helms, comedian Bernie Mac, pinup model Betty Page, and FBI agent and deep throat in the Watergate scandal, Mark Felt. The Nobel Peace Prize went to Martti Ahtisaari of Finland for his efforts to solve global conflicts. U.S. President-elect at the time, Barack Obama, was named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. Hugh Jackman was named People Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive, and Halle Berry was named Esquire Magazine's Sexiest Woman Alive. In books, there were popular books by John Green, Malcolm Gladwell, Neil Gaiman, Nicholas Sparks, and Garth Stein. There were also continuations of series such as Percy Jackson and the Olympians, The Inheritance Cycle, Mortal Instruments, and Twilight. There were also the first books from the Host, Graceling Realm, Perfect Chemistry, and Hunger Games series. In technology, a beta version of the Google Chrome browser was released in mid-December along with the Android Market online software store. The reviews were bad, with some people in the media laughing at Google, wondering why anybody would ever switch from the dominating browser in the market at the time, Microsoft Explorer. Goes to show you that you should never listen to reviewers or unsolicited criticism. Not to be outdone, Apple released the App Store, but only for iOS users. The HTC Dream from T-Mobile became the first cell phone to use the Android operating system. Amazon bought Audible. CBS Interactive bought CNET. The Hulu streaming service was started that year, way ahead of its time. Hootsuite was also released in 2008, as well as Shazam. In 2008 was the first time that anybody had ever heard of Bitcoin, which was proposed late in the year. In video gaming, the Nintendo Wii was the big console of the year. Nintendo also took the top 3 video games of the year in America with Wii Play, Mario Kart Wii, Wii Fit, and also Super Smash Bros. Brawl got in there as well, along with popular games like Grand Theft Auto 4, Madden NFL, Call of Duty World at War, Star Wars The Force Unleashed, and Gears of War 2. In film, the Golden Globes award ceremony was canceled due to a writer's strike. The strike was settled not too long thereafter. Christopher Nolan's Batman epic, The Dark Knight, was the biggest movie of the year. Marvel's Iron Man, starring Robert Downey Jr., also came out in 2008, starting off the Marvel Cinematic Universe era. Iron Man and The Dark Knight also proved that superhero movies could be more than just cheesy fun and could also have well-told stories. Other movies that year were Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Kung Fu Panda, Hancock, Mamma Mia, Madagascar, Escape to Africa, Wall-E, The Chronicles of Narnia, Prince Caspian, Cloverfield, Tropic Thunder, the film version of Sex and the City, the film version of the animated TV series Star Wars The Clone Wars, Wanted, Max Payne, the James Bond movie Quantum of Silence, and Slumdog Millionaire. Slumdog Millionaire went on to win the Academy Award for Best Picture, while Danny Boyle received Best Director. The film score to the movie won Best Original Score, and a song from the movie called Jai Ho won Best Song. Sean Penn won Best Actor for Milk. Kate Winslet won Best Actress for The Reader. Penelope Cruz won Best Supporting Actress for Vicky Cristina Barcelona. And also lending credit to the superhero genre as a viable movie art form, the late Heath Ledger won Best Supporting Actor for his portrayal of the Joker in The Dark Knight. In television, shows premiering in 2008 included The Wendy Williams Show, True Blood, The Rachel Maddow Show, Star Wars The Clone Wars, The Penguins of Madagascar, and Leverage. Shows ending in 2008 included Star Jones, Las Vegas, The Montel Williams Show, Flavor of Love, Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Boston Legal, The Shield, the original run of MTV's Total Request Live, and The Wire. The Wire was also noted by critics as being one of the best written dramas ever put on television, and also for being the show that everybody swears they've watched, but in reality not many have, even on demand and even during the pandemic lockdowns. For the record, the show also gave Idris Elba his first high-profile role in America. The top 10 TV shows of 2008 were 2 nights of American Idol, 3 nights of Dancing with the Stars, Desperate Housewives, CSI, House, Grey's Anatomy, and Sunday Night Football. The Emmy Awards that year were pretty unique. The ceremony was hosted by the 5 nominees for the reality TV show host category, which was the first year that the Academy handed out that award. It was also the lowest-rated Emmy broadcast in history and is considered one of the most avoidable things ever put on TV, which makes me think that whoever came up with that list of worst avoidable things ever put on TV obviously has never watched a reality TV show in his life. As far as the top prizes went, 30 Rock won Best Comedy for the 2nd year in a row, while Mad Men made history, becoming the first basic cable show to win Best Drama. In sports, the Louisiana State Tigers won the NCAA College Football Championship, while the Pittsburgh Steelers won the Super Bowl, which was played for the 2008 season in early 2009 in Tampa, Florida. Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band were the halftime entertainment that time around. The Philadelphia Phillies won baseball's World Series. In basketball, the Boston Celtics, with the big 3 of Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Ray Allen, won the NBA championship. The Detroit Shock, now called the Detroit Wings, won the WNBA championship. The Kansas Jayhawks won the men's NCAA college basketball championship, while Tennessee won the women's NCAA college basketball championship. In cycling, Carlos Sastre won the Tour de France, the Detroit Red Wings won hockey's Stanley Cup, and the Buffalo Bandits won the National Indoor Lacrosse League championship. The Summer Olympics were held in Beijing, China. They included what many consider to be the greatest opening ceremony in Olympics history. In tennis, Novak Djokovic and Maria Sharapova won the Australian Open. Rafael Nadal and Anna Ivanovic won the French Open. Rafael Nadal and Venus Williams won the Wimbledon, and Roger Federer and Serena Williams won the U.S. Open. In motorsports, Lewis Hamilton won the Formula One championship, Scott Dixon won the IndyCar championship, and Jimmy Johnson won the NASCAR championship. Danica Patrick won the IndyCar Indy Japan 300 race, becoming the first female driver to win an open-wheel professional auto race. In soccer, Real Madrid won Spain's La Liga, Manchester United won the English Premier League, Lyon won France's Ligue 1, Internazionale won Italy's Serie A, VfL Wolfsburg won Germany's Bundesliga, Columbus Crew FC won the MLS Cup in America, and Ajax America Women won the Women's Premier Soccer League. In horse racing, Big Brown won the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes, but didn't win the Triple Crown, finishing dead last in the Belmont Stakes, then testing positive for steroids. In golf, Trevor Immelman won the Masters, Tiger Woods won the U.S. Open, Padraig Harrington won the British Open and the PGA Championship. The U.S. won the Ryder Cup that year. Tiger Woods left golf in June that year to have surgery on his left knee. It would be the start of many, many injuries on his part. On the women's side, Lorena Ochoa won the Kraft Cereal Nabisco Championship. Yanni Tseng won the LPGA Championship. Inbee Park won the U.S. Women's Open. And Jaiye Shin won the Women's British Open. Olympic swimmer Michael Phelps won the Associated Press Male Athlete of the Year, while WNBA star Candace Parker won the Female Athlete of the Year. In music, Spotify started, first in Sweden, before, of course, eventually going worldwide. Dave Matthews Band member Leroy Moore passed away from an ATV accident. DJ AM and Travis Barker of Blink-182 were involved in a horrific private plane accident that killed 4 other people. DJ AM would commit suicide a couple years later, reportedly due to not being able to deal with the pain from the injuries sustained in the accident. Other famous artists who also passed away in 2008 included Margaret Truman, not the former First Lady, Freddie Hubbard, Eartha Kitt, Odetta, Mitch Mitchell, Edie Adams, Jeff Healey, Richard Wright, Isaac Hayes, producer Jerry Wexler, Ronnie Drew, Johnny Griffin, Joe Stafford, Bo Diddley, Eddie Arnold, Robert Rauschenberg, Layla Genser, Jessica Jacobs, Klaus Dinger, Norman Smith, Ivan Rebroff, Jaeger Latoff, and Henri Salvador. The best-selling album that year was Lil Wayne's The Carter 3. Other artists having big years included Adele, Coldplay, Rick Ross, Alicia Keys, Madonna, Usher, Disturbed, Miley Cyrus, Amy Winehouse, Rihanna, Leona Lewis, Kings of Leon, Josh Groban, Taylor Swift, Janet Jackson, and the soundtracks to Twilight, Mamma Mia, and High School Musical 3. The biggest single of the year was Flo Rida and T-Pain with Low. 2008 also marked the year that singer Akon did a cameo on a song that helped out another singer that was just starting out, Lady Gaga, on her debut single, Just Dance. Other big singles were by Coldplay, Leona Lewis, Katy Perry, Rihanna, Madonna with Justin Timberlake, Jason Mraz, Pink, T.I., Jack Johnson, Duffy, and Kings of Leon. At the Grammy Awards, Robert Plant and Alison Krauss were the big winners of the night with 5 awards. They won Album of the Year for the album Raising Sand. Record of the Year also went to them for their song Please Read the Letter. Song of the Year, though, went to Coldplay for Viva La Vida, and Adele won Best New Artist. At the Eurovision Singing Contest that was held in Belgrade, Serbia, Russia won that year for the song Believe. At the Tony Awards, In the Heights won Best Musical, and South Pacific won Best Revival of a Musical. At the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony, harmonica player Little Walter was inducted into the Sidemen category. Songwriting and producing team Kenny Gamble and Leon Huff were inducted into the non-performers category. That year's class of inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame included Leonard Cohen, The Ventures, the Dave Clark Five, John Mellencamp, and this next artist. This artist is one of the biggest selling artists of all time. Her style, music videos, and frank talk about sex and sexuality have both shocked and influenced the past few generations. She's changed personas almost as many times as David Bowie. She is one of the queens of the dance music scene. Her nickname comes from a song on one of the biggest selling albums of all time. She is the woman who told Dick Clark in an interview before that particular album was released that her goal was to, quote, rule the world. That mission was accomplished with the album. She is the material girl. She is Madonna. Madonna came up through the New York club scene in the late 1970s to early 1980s. She was the original singer of the 80s band The Breakfast Club, who had a hit album post-Madonna, and honestly it was mainly because of her solo success that they had a hit album. Her first self-titled debut was a slow burn on the Billboard charts, yielding a couple of hit singles like Borderline, Holiday, and Lucky Star. This next album, she was determined to make even bigger. She enlisted the help of producer and lead guitarist for the group Chic, Nile Rodgers. Nile had just come off of producing David Bowie's Let's Dance album. Madonna wanted creative control over her new album, but her record label wasn't too keen on the idea, so they spent the money and hired Nile, much to Madonna's delight as she was a huge fan of his. The album was recorded quickly at the Power Station Studios in New York City. Nile got Bernard Edwards and Tony Thompson of Chic to play on a lot of the tracks. Nile played guitar as well, so in essence the album is sort of another Chic album but with a new female singer. The album was recorded digitally, which wasn't popular at that particular time. Remember, this was the early 1980s. People were still playing video games on the Atari 2600, at least I was. Also, remember at this time that dance music was, by and large, on life support. The musical landscape consisted of new wave, corporate rock, and pop, and disco officially was dead. From the start of the album, Madonna had a game plan. She knew that in order to get noticed, you needed to push a few buttons. In the 1980s, conservatism was huge. The moral majority ruled the public opinion, and Ronald Reagan was president. Madonna knew that putting her sexuality out there was going to create controversy, especially once she mixed it with religion. She did that with songs like a Virgin, along with the iconic album cover of her in a wedding dress. She chose every song on the album to be hits. She did not want any fillers on this album, as she has said in many an interview. The album was done in September of 1984, but couldn't be released because her debut album was still continuing to do that slow burn selling, and she had a couple hit singles at that point. The original release had 9 songs on it. In more recent reissues, the albums added the song Into the Groove, a huge hit off of Madonna's movie Desperately Seeking Susan, which was around the same time period. In fact, it was around the filming of the Desperately Seeking Susan movie when Madonna went from being a singer having only a few hits to suddenly becoming a megastar. The album itself debuted finally on November 12, 1984, but the single, Like a Virgin, had a different debut. On September 14, 1984, Madonna debuted the song at the MTV Video Music Awards, wearing that album cover wedding dress with the boy toy belt buckle and performing on the stage floor in a sexually charged performance. The audience was actually just stunned, and of course controversy followed. Mission accomplished. The album, Like a Virgin, had top five singles from it: Like a Virgin, Material Girl, Angel, Into the Groove, and Dress You Up. Like a Virgin itself debuted at number 70 on the charts, but hit number 1 less than 2 months later. It became the first female solo album to sell over 5 million copies, and it has sold over 10 million copies to date, and even though it was her second album, Like a Virgin was the album that broke the doors wide open for her and turned her into an icon. After that came numerous albums and singles, celebrity relationships and marriages, and many reinventions, including officially delving into EDM on her Ray of Light and Confessions on a Dance Floor albums. She was on a world music kick on her last album, at least. Plus, it's hard to believe that now she's over 60. Man, time flies. Presented for induction by Justin Timberlake, Madonna. Inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, class of 2008. Before we look at the case for inducting someone into the Hall in the upcoming class, let us look at how people get into the Hall to begin with. The criteria for being inducted into the Hall was originally that, quote, artists have to have released their first record 25 years earlier and have created music whose originality, impact, and influence has changed the course of rock and roll, end quote. That interpretation has been updated in recent decades to include music that rock and roll influenced, like reggae, country, and hip-hop, and also the youth culture that music has influenced, and also vice versa. And that, kids, is why hip-hop artists have been inducted into the Hall. The different categories that people can be inducted for are for musical excellence, which is for artists, musicians, songwriters, and producers who have had a dramatic impact on the music. Early influencers, artists whose music influenced rock music and youth culture, like, say, the jazz or blues. The Ahmet Ertegun Award, which is named for the famed record executive Ahmet Ertegun and goes to a non-performer who has had an impact on music, like record executives and managers. There's also now a category that inducts songs that have influenced music, like the Troggs' song Wild Thing. Of course, the most popular category is the performers category, which has everyone from Elvis Presley to Tina Turner. The different nominating committees decide who will make the official ballots for that year. Then, ballots are sent to 1,000 musicologists, executives, performers, and other artists and experts. The fans also get a chance to vote, with that vote usually being held on the Hall's website. Then from that, the final inductees are chosen. Now, with all that being said, let's look at making the case for putting an artist into one of the upcoming classes for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. This week, we're going to make the case for another artist to be inducted next year into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. William Michael Albert Broad was first in the British punk group Chelsea, then became the lead singer of the popular punk rock band Generation X. He got his stage name because one of his teachers said that he was always idle, hence Billy Idol. Billy took everything he learned during his time in the London punk rock scene and developed an extremely successful solo career. With the help of his guitarist and writing partner, Steve Stevens, Billy put out 8 studio albums. Of those, 4 hit the top 40, with 2 of them, Rebel Yell and Whiplash Smile, going top 10. In his native UK, he had 5 go top 40, but only Whiplash Smile went top 10. Billy's also put out at least 37 singles. Of those, 10 went top 40 on the U.S. pop charts, with 4 going top 10 and his remake of Mony Mony going to number 1. On the U.S. rock charts, he did even better, with 16 going top 40, 8 top 10, and Cradle of Love going to number 1. In the U.K., only 10 went to the top 40, with 3 going top 10, with the highest only going to number 6. He was also nominated for 3 Grammy Awards and 10 MTV Video Music Awards, back in the day when that actually meant something. And it is that last stat that is probably the reason why he's not already in the Hall. See, despite having all of his worldwide success from the early 1980s into the early 1990s with songs like Rebel Yell, White Wedding, Eyes Without a Face, Flesh for Fantasy, Hot in the City, and more, he became popular as part of MTV's second British invasion, which made stars out of a lot of artists who had a, let's just say, a certain look. I believe that the voters hold that against almost every single artist from the early MTV era who came up with new wave. Judging from the list of nominees from the early 80s invasion who they've put up for induction, only the Eurythmics have really been given consideration at all. Thing is, Billy was never really new wave. He just looked like it. Billy was always a rocker. Therefore, the Hall shouldn't hold his success in the MTV era against him. And with 80s acts like Journey and Bon Jovi getting in, I think it's high time that Billy Idol should at least be considered for induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Each week in this spot, we usually highlight a different musical Hall of Fame, since there's, of course, a bunch more than just the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's the Country Music Hall of Fame, for instance, also the Blues Hall of Fame, the Grammy Museum, among many others. We're going to talk about this week, though, one that isn't a hall per se. However, to me, it's probably the most important. The Library of Congress, aside from being a place in the movies All the President's Men and National Treasure, is the nation's library. Established in April of 1800, it has more than 38 million books, 14 million photographs, 70 million manuscripts, and 5.5 million maps. From a musical standpoint, it's important for a couple of reasons. The first is that it has over 8 million pieces of sheet music and over 3.5 million recordings. The second, and much more important reason, is what it does with certain recordings. Since the passage of the National Recording Preservation Act of 2000, the library has developed a registry to preserve and protect certain pieces of music and other recordings that are considered historically relevant. That's a pretty high honor, knowing that your song or album is so important to the nation that it needs to be preserved forever. This is a pretty high-class list you're joining here. Some of these recordings are actually speeches or radio shows from yesteryear. For instance, the earliest recorded version of Abbott and Costello's classic Who's on First comedy sketch, Orson Welles' War of the Worlds radio broadcast, and Dr. Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech are in the registry, as are the first recordings on cylinders that Thomas Edison used to show off the phonograph at an exhibition. The first official class was in 2002. There were 50 recordings that were declared important. All of the above-mentioned recordings were in that first class. The class of 2022 was very recently announced and has some diverse entries for the first time in forever, it seems. There's singles like Livin' La Vida Loca by Ricky Martin and The Christmas Song by Nat King Cole, along with albums Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers by the Wu-Tang Clan, songs in A minor by Alicia Keys, and Nick of Time by Bonnie Raitt. There's also a single by this next group, and it's a song that's been popular on at least a few different occasions, but for completely different reasons. Back in the late 1960s, while in art college, young Farouk Bulsara became friends with bassist Tim Staffel, who was in a band called Smile. Farouk became a fan of the band and ended up joining them when Staffel left the band to form another band. Farouk joined the band and did 2 name changes. The first was that he persuaded the rest of the members of the band, guitarist Brian May and drummer Roger Taylor, to change their name from Smile to Queen. The second was that Farouk Bulsara changed his name to Freddie Mercury. Queen played with different bassists for a number of years until they found the perfect bassist in John Deacon. In 1973, the band signed a record deal and released their debut album, Queen. The critics liked the progressive metal sound of the band, but the public didn't find the album, even with the lead single from that album, Keep Yourself Alive. Their second album, Queen 2, found success, both with critics and the general public. That album had the 7 Seas of Rye on it. In 1974, the band released Sheer Heart Attack, which gave them even bigger success with songs like Killer Queen, Now I'm Here, and Stone Cold Crazy. Album number 4 came in around 1975, and that album, A Night at the Opera, became a worldwide smash. After that album, the band became dominant through the late 1970s into the early 1980s with albums A Day at the Races, News of the World, Jazz, The Game, The Works, and A Kind of Magic. They also had hit soundtracks from the movies Flash Gordon, Iron Eagle, and Highlander. Of course, if you saw the movie Bohemian Rhapsody, then you know that the band's popularity started to go down in America as New Wave took over the industry. They were still, however, a big touring draw and were hugely popular in England. See their legendary performance at 1985's Live Aid as proof of that. Freddie's health started to deteriorate from the effects of the AIDS virus as he made the band's final couple of albums, and you can see the beating his body took in the band's music video for the song These Are the Days of Our Lives. Queen are one of the biggest selling musical acts of all time, with claimed sales of over 300 million copies, and are the third best-selling band in England. Rolling Stone voted Freddie the second greatest frontman of all time and the 18th greatest singer of all time, while voting the band the 52nd greatest artist of all time. And in 2001, Queen was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Now, back to that album, A Night at the Opera. That album had the hits Love of My Life, You're My Best Friend, and another song that would chart top 10 3 different times in America, the second time with the help of a movie about 2 kids with a cable TV access show, and the third time because of a biopic. According to historians, some of the ideas for the song Bohemian Rhapsody was formulated in the late 1960s, especially the beginning part where the singer of the song talks about the fact that he just killed a man. The song, all planned out by Freddie beforehand, starts with a 49-second intro, then goes into an almost 2-minute ballad, then Brian May's 25-second guitar solo, then a 1-minute opera that everybody and their grandmother loved singing, then a quick little 47-second rock portion, and has a 1-minute ending. All totaled, it's a 5-minute and 55-second mini rock opera about a guy who accidentally killed a man, sold his soul to the devil, then calls God to help save him. That's the opera portion in the center. The band started recording the song in late August 1975 and took about 3 weeks to record it. They had rehearsed it actually 3 weeks before then. They layered over 100 different tracks onto the song, but Brian May's guitar solo is all him, 1 track only. The record label, as you can imagine, was not pleased with a 6-minute song. They thought it didn't fit into the cookie-cutter 4 minutes or less corporate radio world. So the band took the song to Capitol Radio DJ Kenny Everett, who played it. He teased it first, though, by playing little bits of it until the public wanted more. It then got picked up by other radio stations. After that, Queen's record label, Elektra, released the song on October 31st, Halloween, 1975. The song became a huge hit, especially in England. In America, it went top 10. The song also sold over 6 million copies worldwide. The music video was also made for the song and is considered a template for how music videos were made back in the 1970s. The song has actually been popularized again a few more times. The first was during the unfortunate early death of Freddie Mercury from complications from AIDS in 1991. The second was when a movie called Wayne's World, about 2 guys who had a cable access TV show, used that song. The third was a couple of years ago when the band's biopic, Bohemian Rhapsody, with a Best Actor Academy Award performance by Rami Malek as the late great Freddie Mercury, took the song back to the top 10. Party on, Garth. Party on, Wayne. Queen's epic, head-banging, karaoke-singing, progressive rock opera classic, Bohemian Rhapsody, inducted into the Library of Congress National Recording Registry, class of 2022. And that is it for the Music Halls of Fame podcast, episode 28. Thanks for listening. Audio engineering and editing, video editing, writing, narration, basically everything having to do with this podcast is done by yours truly. You can find us on our website at cjbtproductions.com. Our podcast is on all of your favorite podcast providers such as Apple Music, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Spotify, etc., all under Music History Today. If you would like to support this podcast, our Patreon can be found at patreon.com/Music History Today. We are also on Twitter at Music History Day, and you can now find us on YouTube. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell anytime you want to know exactly what videos are dropped and when. All of those links can be found in the show notes below. Thank you very, very much for listening.